Jets on three. 1, 2, 3. Jets.
Green gonna win, that's all I'm saying.
Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's go to work.
What happened? We taking this. Win on 3. 1, 2, 3. Win.
Welcome to Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi. I'm Eric Allen, and running the one-back set inside our BetMGM studio. But you are looking live at Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington, of course. No 12th man today, but the Jets are going to contend with a bunch of angry Seahawks after what happened to Seattle last week. Let's bring in Anthony Becht and Eric Coleman. Anthony, this Jets team, they're not going to be catching a Seattle team overlooking them, considering what happened last week. The Giants went in there, 17-12, a victory with their backup quarterback, Colt McCoy. They rushed for nearly 200 yards, and they got after Russell Wilson. So the Seahawks are going to be poised and ready for this ball game.
It's a possibility. I'll be honest with you. The Seahawks, to me, are not trending up right now. They're trending down. You know, you look at their defense. You talked about what the Giants did. It wasn't like the game plan was, stop Colt McCoy and, we'll take care of the run. I mean, the Giants took care of them up front when the defense knew that they weren't going to pass the ball heavily in that football game. I think offensively, too, for the Seahawks, they don't look like the same offense. We're all used to seeing big strikes down the field with DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson doing his thing. I don't see that same team, and I've yet to see them in several weeks. So, listen, I may flip it the other way and say that the Jets right now are landing in a situation where maybe they can kick a team down that really doesn't have an identity or really playing good football the last few weeks of the season.
Wow. Okay, Eric, let's stay right there as we look at the Jets warming up at Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington. How will the green and white respond after what happened to them last week? That game against the Raiders as we discussed on Jets Overtime, that is about the toughest way you can lose a game in the National Football League. You got to lead 28-24, 13 seconds left on the clock. Raiders have no timeouts. We know how that ended. How are the Jets going to respond, E?
Well, I expect them to come out swinging. I would be very frustrated with the outcome of last game. I'm sure when they went back and watched the film, you see that, the Jets did everything they could to win this football game, and they came up short. And I think that I'd be angry. I would come out fighting and just understand that, the Seahawks are going to be in for a dogfight no matter what happens at the end. You stay within the game plan. You play great football. You play tough football. Then the Jets can be in any game. So I expect them to come out swinging today. I expect them to be super excited, to get out there and prove a point that last game was not a fluke, and they can come out and play against some of the contenders.
Eric, let's stay with you. It's not that the Jets are turning over a new leaf, but they do have a new Bush. That is defensive coordinator Frank Bush. He formerly was the Houston Texans defensive coordinator in 2009-2010. He's got coordinator experience. He's been with Adam Gase his last few stops, including Miami, and, of course, here with the New York Jets. Inside linebackers coach, assistant head coach. What kind of new wrinkles do you expect from the Jets? You can't change your entire system in a week, right, E?
No, you definitely can't change it in a week. But what you can do is you can add some different blitzes. You can add some different coverages. Every week when you get your game plan, everything changes. So there are going to be some different wrinkles. I think that, obviously he's going to call the game differently than Greg Williams would have called it, probably less emotional, more strategic. And maybe that works out for this team. I do know one thing, that a lot of the guys were frustrated after the last game, and what better response to have than come out the next week after your coach gets fired and play for the position coach that they all probably respect. So I expect them to come out fired up. I expect them to come out in sync, communicating, and really just being aggressive. I would like to see them aggressive playing against the Seahawks offensive line, who struggles at times.
Anthony, you referenced it before. The Seahawks, in 7 of their first 8 games, they scored more than 30 points. But this is an offense that has looked completely different of late. Why?
I'll be honest with you. When I watch Russell Wilson, I know there's a lot been said about, the MVP votes and, he's in the running. But there's some things that Russell Wilson does that you kind of shake your head at sometimes. I mean, he clearly is an athletic quarterback that can make things happen with his legs. But when you watch him in the pocket a lot of times, he tends to extend plays without movement and really causes the opportunity for defensive linemen and defenses to converge on him, and he really concedes to a sack. You know, there are some times when he's out quickly, and that's when he's at his best. But I would lean on the other side that he hasn't been that kind of player lately. Now, maybe that's something that changes. You did see a little bit of that in last week's game. But again, it wasn't effective enough. But you see him in the pocket. It's almost like, and listen, I can't judge this guy from the fact that, you know, he doesn't understand or what he's doing, because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But it seems like his internal clock is like not quite set normally. He literally like stands back there as if he's going to have protection all day. And that's not really how it's been working out, especially the fact that they've had banged up linemen. So if he continues to do that, great opportunity for this Jets defense to really get in there and make some things happen.
Fellas, it's fascinating to me as we talk about Russell Wilson that one of the key figures on the Seattle Seahawks offense is actually right tackle Brandon Shell, because the Seahawks have not been protecting Wilson of late. And one of the key figures for them has been Shell, and he's been out of the lineup. We'll just see what happens today. I want to talk about the Jets quarterback, though, guys, Sam Darnold. At what point, let's stick with our offensive guy, Anthony Beck, do you say, Sam Darnold just has not got any luck in 2020 like a bunch of us? Because Denzel Mims out of the lineup today, 40 yards receiving in each of his pro games so far, but he had to attend to a personal issue, a family matter, was not able to get back in terms of being able to get through all those COVID tests with the NFL protocols. So Mims has been out of the lineup for this game. We knew that for a few days. And Jamison Crowder, his top target overall over the last 2 seasons, he's questionable right now.
Well, if Crowder plays today, then I think there's enough out there to judge Sam, week to week. I mean, listen, Mims isn't the key factor for you want to see exactly. I've always been the big proponent of having all his weapons there. But Crowder, Herndon, Perryman, you got 2 backs that ran the ball efficiently. Gore could be back. I would take that all day. So, Sam has to get better. Again, there's a little bit of a lag with the time he's been off. He's getting back into the mix. But you have to be sharp. You have to be able to come out and say, you know what, listen, I got nothing to lose. I'm going against a defense that's had a ton of problems, talking of Seattle's defense. Here's an opportunity to make some things happen. And I think this is an opportunity for him to do that, to go out there, play loose, have fun, and open up the playbook in the sense that go let him come out firing on all cylinders. Let him go, be him, and see what he can do. Because honestly, I think that's the evaluation I think we all want to have with him is, what can he do when all cylinders are firing, and can he get a W for this football team? So right now, don't hold back. See what he brings to the table, and see if he can finish strong.
All right, let's keep the camera right there at Lumen Field because we're watching Jamison Crowder warm up. He is questionable today. If he can go, what do you anticipate in terms of the Jets' personnel packages? This is a team that has lived in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. Do you stay in that look, or do you go to more maybe 12 personnel and do a lot of Ryan Griffin and Chris Herndon, of course? Because if you're staying in 11 personnel, I would think that, okay, Crowder's still playing the slot for you, and maybe a guy like Jeff Smith is playing outside the numbers. If you're going 12 personnel, then your 2 receivers are going to be Rashad Perryman and the aforementioned Jamison Crowder if he can go.
Yeah, Eric, I've always been a fan of 12 personnel. I think that the things that you can do, the versatility that you can have as an offense out of 12 personnel, the plays are unlimited. You can split a receiver out. You can split out Chris Herndon, create an 11-like look. You can keep 2 tight ends in and block and help on the run game. And I think establishing the run today is going to be a big part of the Jets' success. Leading off of last week's game, Ty Johnson was running the ball well. I thought that really did help out Sam Darnold in his approach. So if the Jets can stay in some 12 personnel, whether Jamison Crowder is healthy or not, I think it's going to be of a big benefit. I think Griffin is an excellent pass catcher. He's obviously a great blocker. Same thing with Chris Herndon. It'd be great to get one of those guys in a one-on-one situation against Jamal Adams, try to expose his coverage skills a little bit, and see if they can take advantage of a mismatch somewhere in the secondary.
You are watching Pregame Central.
Eric Holm is one of my favorite Jets.
Here we go. Tight end love.
12 personnel. Get it on the field.
You probably want
Oh, yeah, it's a
13
problem.
personnel. Because we're going to talk to Ethan Greenberg later here on Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. And the Jets made a number of transactions on Saturday, including activating Trayvon Wesco to the roster. So you're going to have 3 healthy tight ends. So we saw Ryan Griffin line up in the backfield last week at that fullback position. Now you get Wesco back. Maybe Wesco plays a little fullback for you, and sometimes you go 13 personnel groupings. You have that option. Well, Anthony, let's stay right there. Seattle is 32nd in the National Football League against the pass. Do you know what that means? They're the worst in the NFL stopping the pass. They've been better of late with Jamal Adams helping their pressure packages. Of course, they traded for Carlos Dunlap, who's been very good for them. But what caught my eye last week was Seattle's been pretty good stopping the run. Is that because teams are not even running the football against them? Because last week, the Giants ran it, and they ran it really well. The Jets last week against the Raiders rushed for more than 200 yards. Last week, the Giants and their rookie left tackle, does this ring a bell? Andrew Thomas. The Jets have a rookie tackle who is very impressive themselves in Mekhi Becton, one of the elite run blockers in the National Football League. The Giants ran for close to 200 yards last week. The Jets ran it for close to 200 yards last week.
Well, listen, I think the problem is teams don't account for Jamal Adams. I mean, there's a lot of times he's in the box. He's untouched. I mean, even when they're running at his side and he's in the box, he doesn't get blocked. Listen, you have to tweak your run game to make sure that if he is down on that side, or you run to it, or you check out of it and go a different way, that you have a hat on a hat for him. He's as important a tackler as they have at any level of their defense. He's one of their best players, one of the best players in the league in the box. Notice how I stress in the box, because that's where he wants to be. The Seattle Seahawks know that's where his positives are in his game. They're not going to stick him back there in coverage a bunch of times because that's not his game. When he does, that's an opportunity. But if he's in the box, that's where things have to be taken care of from a run game standpoint. And I think teams can have opportunities in the run game to be successful, but you got to get a hat on a hat on number 33 or it won't work.
Today's kickoff for Jets Seahawks at Lumen Field is at 4:05. For more on the matchup, Olivia Landis caught up with Seahawks radio analyst Dave Wyman for our latest installment from the broadcast booth.
Team reporter Olivia Landis here, and I am now joined by ESPN radio host and Seattle Seahawks radio analyst Dave Wyman. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Olivia.
Dave, last week the Seahawks fell to the Giants, and I'm curious from your perspective, was that a little bit of a blip in play, or is that cause for concern?
Well, it's cause for concern, I think. The thing I said afterwards is at least it happened, it wasn't in the playoffs. I mean, if it happens in the playoffs, then you're one and done. And so there are just a couple of things that got exposed there. And, one of them is that the passing game just was not working against the Giants. They really did a good job of taking it away. They really did a good job of confusing Russell Wilson. They've kind of struggled a little bit defensively playing together. And then, they're right now trying to establish their identity offensively, which is kind of late. Both of those things happening kind of late, but I'm hoping with the veteran leadership they have on this team that they could pull it together.
Dave, you said that this Seattle team is trying to establish their identity offensively. Yeah. What exactly do you think that they're trying to get in rhythm for? Because we've seen a lot of flashes of some really great play, especially from quarterback Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, he just started off gangbusters, and this has just not been what Pete Carroll has been about. I mean, look, the defense struggled mightily for the first half of the season, and then they were throwing the ball deep. And, Russ had one of the best, highest averages per throw in the NFL. And, that's not typical of a Pete Carroll team. They usually want, as Pete says, pound the rock, and they really haven't been doing it. They only ran it 9 times in the second half against the Giants. So, with Chris Carson being kind of in and out of the lineup, and, Carlos Hyde as well, they struggled getting their running game going, but they didn't really have to in the beginning because Russ was just magical. I mean, he was throwing the ball deep. DK Metcalf just emerged as this huge superstar in the NFL, and of course Tyler Lockett. So, but now all of a sudden going into the playoffs, and Pete knows this, that the turnover ratio and then running the ball are the two things that are most indicative of getting teams into the playoffs, the most important, I should say. So those are the things that they're kind of trying to work on late here, but I feel like they can get it done. Chris Carson, Olivia, to me is a very special player. I mean, I think he's one of the best running backs in the league, but he's had a really hard time staying healthy. But he's one of those types of runners that strikes fear in opposing linebackers.
Thank you so much, Dave, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Olivia.
You are watching Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. It's Jets Seahawks in less than 2 hours now. And here's a news alert for everybody out there. It's raining in Seattle. So let's bring in Eric Coleman, Anthony Beck. It's monster matchup time. And let's start with Eric Coleman because Dave Wyman just talked to Olivia Landis about it. They got a big-time receiving pair. DK Metcalf, over 1,100 yards receiving, leads the National Football League. Tyler Lockett on pace for his second consecutive 1,000-yard season. Are you going in that direction, E?
Oh, I am. I gotta pick the defensive backs versus the wide receivers. So I'm going with Bryce Hall and Bless Austin against Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Listen, Bless Austin and Bryce Hall have a lot on their hands today. DK Metcalf, as you mentioned, the league's leading receiver. He's a big-time deep threat. He's been running well in intermediate routes and just very big target for Russell Wilson. Tyler Lockett is tough because he runs a lot of deep arrow routes across the formation, deep balls, all kinds of cross-country routes that are tough to match up with, and that there's going to have to be a lot of communication on the back end to understand where he is and where he's going. So that's my monster matchup today, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, before we get to Anthony Beck, then we're watching Bryce Hall right now in Seattle, the rookie who's set to make his another start, I should say, against one of the dynamic pairs of receivers in the National Football League. Eric, what kind of coverage do you want to see from the Jets in the back end with new coordinator Frank Bush in charge? Do you play a lot of cover too, so you do have safety help against these receivers, or do you mix in the blitzes and the man coverage as well?
Well, you definitely have to have a mixture of coverages and blitz. But I would like to see some cover 2 and some cover 3 as well. In that cover 3 coverage, it allows your cornerbacks to stay on top of all the deep routes, which we know that the Seahawks love to run. And it allows your linebackers and safeties to get underneath to handle all the deep outbreaking routes. And it also gives another safety in the box to support the run. So I think cover 3 is a great coverage, even some cover 1 for the Jets, helping run support, because we know the Seahawks love to run the football with Chris Carson and play action and set it up with the deep shot. So I like cover 3, cover 1, and mix in some cover 2 just to keep everybody on top and let the athletes play underneath.
30 seconds, because we're going to get to the safety on the other side of the ball with Anthony. Give us the breakdown of cover 3 and cover 1 from a cornerback perspective, the differences.
From a cornerback perspective, in cover 1, all your help is inside. So you can play man to man. You understand that there's post help underneath. If you run an underneath route, there's linebacker help through there. Cover 3, the cornerbacks they have their thirds outside the numbers. They're playing on top from the top down. Linebackers are underneath the inside and outside routes. So you can really you don't have to bite on all the short routes. You can play it from the top down.
Good thing we're going to class football 101 here. Anthony, the Jets made a huge trade before the start of training camp, sending Jamal Adams to Seattle. He'll be lining up against the Jets for the first time here. He's got 7.5 sacks. That's a career high. He could set an NFL record for sacks in a single season by a defensive back with just 1 today. Are you looking at that matchup?
I am. And first, let me start. Jets won that trade, in my opinion, so that's going to be beneficial for the Jets moving in the future. The matchup for me is Sam Darnold versus Jamal Adams. And this really comes down to when Jamal Adams is in the box, and let's be honest, maybe 75% of the game, where he's located and what he's doing. I'm hoping that from an offensive standpoint, if it's a run or a pass, and you have some type of check package where you can at least run away or have some key runs or have some key passes to utilize where he is on the field. He has to be seen at all times by Sam Darnold. He has to know when he's tight to the line of scrimmage. He has to understand, where he will be and where he can locate himself so that he doesn't cause a problem for the Jets offense. And that's going to be really huge in this game. If you think for 1 second that if he's up in that box and you do not account for him in any sense, form, or fashion without a point or some type of check with me package, he will ruin your day. So when he's in coverage, Sam's got to be aware of him too, because I'm going right where he's at. And I'm going to get that receiver he's locked on and throw that receiver the ball every single time. But let's be honest, the Seahawks are smart. He's not in coverage much. He will be, but it's going to be close quarters. He wants to be around that box. So even when he's split out in the slot sometimes, he's coming. So you got to make sure you account for him. And Sam has to make sure he knows if it is a pass, okay, what that timing is like and have that internal clock, because he will get to the quarterback if you give him time.
Anthony Becht already had his cup of Seattle coffee this morning. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not letting you get away with that one without me coming back. You said the Jets won the trade with Seattle. Why do you say that? Because we know the Jets have 4 first-round picks in 2021 and 2022, if you combine them all, because obviously they have 2 of Seattle's picks, and they get a 3rd rounder in there as well. Why did Joe Douglas win that deal?
Well, it's just a premium for picks, number one, and you got to have somebody that understands and knows how to pick players from the draft. And I know Joe's staff. It's not just Joe; it's Rex and these guys have done a nice job in their careers of doing some good things, being around good personnel, GMs across the NFL. So they have had a great draft this past season. Makes a lot of sense to think that they won the trade because they're going to be able to get some bodies, some players to fill the roster and help this football team.
Eric, why you played the safety position? What would you say about the trade that sent Jamal Adams, who didn't want to be here anymore, fellas? That was one of the things that we have to consider when we're talking about this deal. And there is the draft capital. A lot of flexibility for the Jets moving forward. But Eric, what did you think of the deal at the time? And now what do you think about the deal here in December as we're a few months away from that 2021 draft?
Well, at the time of the trade, I was a little bit frustrated. I was a big fan of Jamal Adams. I still am. I think he's a phenomenal safety, great player, plays with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. But anytime you can get 2 draft picks for a guy who didn't want to be here, I think that's a win for the Jets. They're trying to rebuild this team. I think 2 first-round draft picks, a 3rd-round pick. You get a safety as well in McDougald. I think that the Jets ended up winning this draft. Let's see what happens, though. Let's see who they pick. What role do these players play in the Jets' future? But at the end of the day, we know that Jamal Adams didn't want to be here. So getting those 2 first-rounders and a 3rd, it was a great deal. Yeah, huge. And these 2 teams are going to be connected for years, fellas. There's no doubt about that. My monster matchup real quickly is Mekhi Becton against Seattle's defensive ends. I don't think he's going to see much of Carlos Dunlap today. Dunlap has been lining up on the other side. So Benson Mayowa, I think Becton has become one of the NFL's top run blockers. And again, Andrew Thomas had a real good game last week against the Seattle front. Becton, I'm going to be very interested to see if he not only takes on Mayowa, but he gets to the 2nd level and gets after Jamal Adams. Wouldn't that be fun to see those 2 collide in space? But for more on today's matchup, let's get to Adam Gase right now.
What are you seeing from them defensively now? The Legion of Boom, long gone. They're making transitions there. Carlos Dunlap, I think, has been very good up front for them. Jamal Adams, you're very familiar with him. He's doing his thing there in the Pacific Northwest. You still have Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just when you look at their numbers, it doesn't make sense with what you see on film. They're very aggressive on defense as far as how they play, the way they come off the ball. I mean, Jamal's playing exactly the way that, he's always played. He's really aggressive when he pressures and does a good job of wrapping guys up and getting them on the ground. The linebackers have been there for a while. They've got a lot of mileage on them, but, there's still 2 really good players that are they're just so steady and so consistent, and, they make the plays that are needed to be made. And, it's a tough defense for us to go against, and we're going to have to play really well.
What are you expecting from your guys today? You've said it all year, the effort's been there, and we especially saw that last week against the Raiders, where you can make the argument that was one of your most complete efforts of the season.
Yeah, it's just going to come down to, fighting for 4 quarters, and, whether the offense is on the field at the end or the defense is on the field at the end, whoever it is has to finish the game.
The Adam Gase Show airs locally in New York, 11:30 a.m. Sundays. You can check it out on NewYorkJets.com and the Jets app before kickoff. We got you covered. But another person who actually has you covered, of course, he does this every week on our All In or Not Today segment, is Ethan Greenberg. As we bring in Greens, let's talk about transactions. Jets made a ton of them on Saturday. What jumped out to you? What can you tell us about those moves?
Yeah, there were a lot of moves yesterday, and I think the two important ones are really the guys that came off of injured reserve. When you think about Bless Austin, who will help that secondary that started or at least played 4 rookies the past couple weeks. When you think of Ashton Davis, Bryce Hall, Lamar Jackson, and then, of course, Javelin Guidry. Bless Austin might be in his 2nd year, but he's kind of a graybeard of that bunch, and going up against what Eric Coleman was talking about with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the Seattle Seahawks. That helps that unit. Trayvon Wesco, the other player to come off injured reserve. 3 players went down to IR, Greg Van Roten, Ashton Davis, and Bennett Jackson. Those 3 guys, Adam Gase said earlier in the week, probably done for the season. And while there are questions on who will be up for the Jets, particularly Jamison Crowder, we'll see the inactives later in this show. 2 guys that will definitely be up. Lawrence Cager signed to the active roster from the team's practice squad. He played in 2 games earlier this year. And then Jaleel Scott, the other practice squad receiver, he's just elevated for this game, and then he'll revert back to the practice squad after this game.
All right, Ethan, before we start All In or Not Today, the Jets been juggling that safety position next to Marcus May for his first few years in the National Football League, playing alongside Jamal Adams. He'll be facing Jamal in a different capacity today, but it was Bradley McDougald who started out as his partner this year. He got banged up. Now Ashton Davis lands on the injured reserve. So let's keep an eye who's starting alongside Marcus May today. Take it away for All In or Not Today.
All right, now with that being said, let's head to All In or Not Today. Anthony Becht, as always, we're going to start with you. The Jets have scored in 6 consecutive games on their opening drive. Will they make it 7 for 7, which would be a franchise record, Anthony Becht? All in or not today?
All in. There's something about confidence. There's something about believing something you can do week in and week out. That's one thing the Jets have been able to hang their hat on. They should feel good about. I think the way they started the game last week with running the football and having balance, Sam can get into a flow with some productive throws and passes. I think this is good. One thing, though, with the weather, protect the ball. I don't believe that the Jets have played in many rain games this year. If it's a little misty out there, protect the football. They have a good chance. So I'm going to say all in.
All right, that's 1 vote for all in. Eric Coleman, let's head to you. So Russell Wilson last week struggled against the Giants, and when you look at their formula for success, mouthful for me this morning or this afternoon, let's hear about this Jets defense. So do you think, all in or not today, Eric Coleman, this Jets defense will sack Russell Wilson 4 times, at least 4 times, but Russell will still have at least 300 yards passing?
That's a tough one, but I'm going to say all in. And if the Jets do get 4 sacks, the Seahawks are going to need Russell Wilson to throw for 300 yards because chances are the Jets will be in the lead and the Seahawks will be coming from behind. So I'm going to go all in on this one. I like the matchup with Quinnen Williams in the middle of that offensive line, facing that middle of the offensive line. Jordan Jenkins on the perimeter. I think these guys will get fired up, make a couple of big plays, and create some sacks and some havoc for Russell Wilson.
All right, it always comes down to EA on all in or not today. Will he be the third person to be all in or the one not today? So EA, with that being said, last week the Jets ran for 206 rushing yards. Today against the Seahawks defense that ranks 5th in the NFL, they will rush for at least 150 rushing yards. All in or not today?
All in, Greens. I think the Jets found something last week, and I mentioned it before. The Seattle Seahawks gave up nearly 200 yards on the ground last week to the Giants. I love the Jets' left side right now. Pat Elflein playing guard, And Mekhi Becton, he's become elite run blocker here early on in his NFL career. And like Anthony mentioned, the weather's awful there in Seattle. It's slick, so pound the football. Not only just give Frank Gore the ball, but Ty Johnson, who had 104 yards last week, a career high. And how about Josh Adams? I mean, he was averaging, it felt like 10 yards a pop last week. All in.
All right, we got 3 for 3 on All In for All In or Not today. BetMGM, the official gaming partner of the New York Jets, is bringing fans a free New York Jets weekly pick'em contest. To enter, just sign up and make predictions on how this week's game will play out. You can download the Jets app today for a chance to win an MGM Resorts trip package and free bets at BetMGM Sports. You can play for free every week. You must be 21 years or older. Restrictions do apply. Visit BetMGM.com for a full list of terms and conditions. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now let's head to Fearless Predictions. I'll kick things off. Then we'll hear from Anthony Becht, Eric Coleman, and then, of course, EA will take us home. And so I'm going to pick up where you just left off, EA, talking about this Jets run game. I'm actually going in the opposite direction. Got to be a little bold on Fearless Predictions. I'm going to say that Sam Darnold will throw for the most passing yards this season so far to date. So he'll eclipse, 230 yards? Maybe, throw a couple touchdown passes as well, matching that against the Las Vegas Raiders last week. Anthony Becht, I know that was a little bold, but do you dig it?
I always dig what you got, Ethan. I love it. Listen, I'm gonna stick with the run game. Look, Ty Johnson to me has a great chance. Back-to-back 100-yard games rushing. Feed him the rock. I want to see some more out of this kid. I love Frank Gore. He's a legend. There's no doubt about it. Coming off the concussion protocol, see what happens for him in the game. But let's see what some of these young players can do. And anytime you get 100 yards rushing, Eric, it's hard to not go back to the well with that, especially when you can run behind the big guy on the left side, where the Giants did a lot of damage to the Seahawks in last week's game.
I agree with you, Anthony. It's going to be important for the Jets to continue running the football, making things easier for Sam Darnold. But for my fearless prediction today, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the pass rush. I think Quinnen Williams is going to have 2 sacks today, and he's going to have one heck of a day. He's been active all season, having a Pro Bowl caliber year. I think he adds to that and has 2 sacks today.
I thought long and hard about this, fellas. Now, I was thinking about going in any one of a number of directions. Jamison Crowder, I'm hoping he's going to be active because I'm going with Jamison Crowder gets in the end zone not once, but twice for a second consecutive week. He has 5 touchdown receptions so far this season. Anthony Becht, Eric Coleman, we will see you later on Jets Overtime. And that goes for Ethan Greenberg as well. And a great segment of All In or Not Today and Fearless Predictions, thanks to Olivia Landis, of course. And here is today's inactives. The key name is the one you don't see there, fantasy owners. Jamison Crowder is active today. He was questionable on Friday. We didn't know about his status, but Crowder is giving it a go. So the Jets won't have Denzel Mims, but Sam Darnold will have Rashad Perriman and Jamison Crowder. Interesting ball game. Will the Jets find their sonic boom in Seattle? We're about to find out. Remember, come back to us an hour after the final whistle. We'll have you covered on Jets Overtime. Enjoy your late afternoon, Jets Nation.